Francis,
Yes.
be nice while they're presenting, okay?
What did I do?
Francis, okay. Thank you. Okay.
Right. So I'm James Carney. May I begin?
Yes.
I'm going to be giving a presentation on the arrogance and failures of Jedi Council figurehead Yoda that led to the fall of the Republic in the Star Wars universe. So before I begin, I'm going to go give a brief overview of the characters you may or may not know that are involved in this presentation. This is Yoda. This is Qui-Gon Jinn. This is Anakin Skywalker, otherwise known as Darth Vader. And the man on the right is Darth Plagueis, and the man on the left is Emperor Palpatine. Plagueis is the master of Palpatine. They are both Sith. Anyway, in the Star Wars commonly accepted as canon timeline, Yoda did some things that led to the ultimate destruction of the Republic. He is directly responsible for them, and I will be describing how so here. So, it may be hard to believe that someone as well known and loved as Yoda could actually be responsible for this, but he was. And the main contributing factor of his was his arrogance. His arrogance was so great that he didn't take any words from any other members on the council. He believed in his own force ability, which was once potent, maybe 100 years ago, that his precognition was perfect. The other councilmen could contribute with discussions, but it was a saying in the council, informally of course, that if Yoda agreed with it, it was most likely going to be put through the council as everyone else would agree with it. Now, there was a mission that Yoda assigned to Qui-Gon Jinn and his apprentice at the time to a planet. The planet's name is Pyjal, and on this planet there was a huge corporation, and not to get down to the nitty-gritty, what they basically did is they went to planet and they enslaved people after making a deal with the government to pay the government a ton of money. So they basically were slavers. Now, obviously, as any sane person would be, Qui-Gon Jinn did not like this one bit. When he reported back to the council that this corporation was just enslaving people because they could, basically, for their own gain, Yoda legit did not care. Yoda confused the ideals of the Senate and Republic with the values that the Jedi Council holds. In other words, Yoda was perfectly okay with the Caesarca Corporation enslaving people by the hundreds on this planet, as long as it did not impact his relation with the Senate. Now, his motivations were to preserve his ranking and face within the Senate committees, but obviously that's against what the Jedi believe in, because slavery is bad, as we know. The next display of his grand arrogance was finding the literal chosen one that's meant to save the world, Anakin Skywalker, putting him on the Jedi Council, but refusing to grant him the rank of Master. That's just an insult. Like, only Masters can be on the Council, but what Yoda did is he basically assigned Anakin a duty without commissioning him. He was an NCO. Anakin was an NCO, a non-commissioned officer. Yoda himself had an apprentice named Count Dooku. He's one of the Jedi's strongest members, and specifically because of Yoda, Count Dooku, once a devout follower of the Jedi, actually left the Council specifically because of Yoda. He was fed up with Yoda's, for lack of better terms, BS. He just pieced out and became a Sith. That's exactly what happened. Now, these are questionable decisions, whether you know anything about Star Wars or not. I think we can all agree on that. You know, slavery is bad, insulting the chosen one who's supposed to save the world is also bad, causing him to turn to the dark side is also bad, losing one of your strongest members because of your own arrogance and unwillingness to listen to other people besides yourself and your preconceived notions of what the Force is telling you is also bad. But not only was he arrogant, his precognition wasn't even that good. It was failing. He was becoming old and decrepit. By the time he actually died, he was like 1,000 years old, I believe. Anyway, in the Phantom Menace, the Star Wars movie, Darth Plagueis is still alive. That's the master of Palpatine. Palpatine ultimately kills Plagueis. Plagueis is the man on the right for further clarification. Palpatine's the one on the left. Anyway, Plagueis literally atomized, or for in other terms, red misted 20 assassins. He atomized them with a force chakra. You would think that any Jedi that, I don't know, has any grasp on the Force would be able to feel that, because that's a massive attack. But Yoda did not feel it, because he was so convinced that the Sith could not come back. It was just not something possible. That's what he believed. And Yoda simply did not feel it. Now, not only did Plagueis kill 20 assassins, he sent Palpatine to go get revenge on the person that sent the assassins, and Palpatine did the same thing, and Yoda didn't feel that either. So, Yoda's clearly missing something here. His abilities are based on what he once was rather than what he was currently in The Phantom Menace. Now, in Revenge of the Sith, for those of you unfamiliar with the movie, Anakin's basically just throughout the entire movie talking just out his butt about dark side rhetoric. So Anakin tells his secret girlfriend that the Jedi doesn't know about how he believes a Machiavelli-like dictatorship would be best for the Republic. And everybody else in the room is just like, Anakin, are you serious? Your girlfriend's literally a senator. Why would you tell her this? Which, of course, is because he was conversing with Palpatine, which Yoda knew about, but did not sense anything from Palpatine, so he didn't really care. He just let it happen. Another example of this is Anakin literally killed an entire village of sand people, slaughtered them in the desert, and nobody really cared. So, big oversight on Yoda's part because I'm sure he heard about that, granted that Padme is a senator and Yoda was so concerned with the Senate's opinion on him and the council. Yoda actually admits to his arrogance and failures that led to the fall of the Republic in the Revenge of the Sith movie, where he says, as I said on the first slide, that he's going to Dagobah for exile. That's not out of fear. That's because he's ashamed of his actions and recognizes that he has no recourse for them. Just to wrap things up here, had Yoda stopped for even just a minute to examine any of his actions, especially the slavery one, which should have been obvious to someone that's a basically religious leader, should have been obvious, he would have been able to prevent the fall of the Republic and ultimately the rise of Darth Vader and the death of millions of people. But he did not re-examine his actions. He went off of what he perceived as the right thing to do. Thankfully, to conclude, Yoda, when he came back as a Force ghost in The Last Jedi, he admitted that he was out of line to Grand Master Luke Skywalker, and he burned the sacred texts and became more in line with Qui-Gon Jinn's philosophy on the Jedi. Thank you very much for listening.